we want to give UEG as much time as possible. Just a brief introduction. UEG is part of the
and it's long, and it's usually people tend to overthink when you see it.
Could you speak up or use a microphone, please?
Sure, I will speak up. Is that better?
Barely.
Do we have a microphone option?
I don't know.
I will let you know.
Sorry.
It's not in there yet.
Right there on the desk.
Sadly. And maybe if we close the doors. Yeah.
Put on your teacher voice.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first session in the badges track at Open Ed, so welcome. I work with Mozilla Foundation. I am basically our in-house researcher to talk about open badges, to understand how they're being used and really imagine what the future of them is in thinking about digital accreditation. So I'm quickly wondering if I can just get a show of hands, people who have low, medium, and high familiarity with open badges. So who is brand new? This is a completely new topic, and you're really looking to learn more. Great. Who has talked about it, tweeted about it, but could always supplement their learning? Also. And who would say that they are a badges expert? They are issuing badges within their learning communities, etc. Excellent. Well, a great range. So Mozilla, you may know because of the Firefox web browser. And we've taken that same approach to open source and to protection of user data and really asked the question, what would it look like to use badges for learning? So over the course of the past few years, digital badges have really increased as a form of currency on the social web. So games that you play, Khan Academy, etc., have these built-in many cases, gamification methods. And we, as a foundation, have really started to ask, what would it look like to apply rigorous learning principles, to really look at competency-based learning, and to make it possible for any organization or individual with content to share to issue badges to their communities of practice. And thanks to support of the MacArthur Foundation, we've built the Open Badges infrastructure, which is a technical standard that makes it possible for badges issued anywhere to be interoperable and stackable. So to date, in many cases, the badges that I had earned would live, let's say, on Khan Academy, on Code School, on any other number of sites. And it wasn't possible to really stack them in a way that could tell a robust story of what it is that I'm capable of and what I'm passionate about. So we, our 15-person team at Mozilla, created this metadata specification. And this is really the, in many ways, the bones behind badges and what differentiates them from digital badges. So open badges are still digital, but they are really information rich. And then every open badge you click on can tell you when that badge was issued, who issued it, the evidence behind that badge, which gets really exciting when we think about sharing multimedia artifacts, sharing term papers, any other evidence that has been created and can be shared online. And in the future, thinking about endorsement. You won't see endorsement listed in the current metadata specification, but it's something that is potentially very exciting. I'm working with an organization right now called Youth Radio that's based in Oakland, California, and they offer multimedia training skills, production skills to high school youth. And many of these youth will not immediately go on to a college or university, and so it's of utmost importance that when they finish high school or a GED, that they be able to show employers what they can do on day one. And to date, high school transcripts and even video clips have not really been able to tell powerful stories on behalf of these learners. So Youth Radio is developing their own badge system to recognize places where these individuals are talented at digital storytelling, where they are cross-cultural communicators, where they show leadership potential, where they demonstrate moxie. All these things that employers tell us more and more they're really looking for. And one reason that Youth Radio is interested in issuing open badges that align with this technical standard is the promise of an endorsement piece. So many Youth Radio students' radio pieces end up airing on All Things Considered and Morning Edition, National Public Radio shows. And so right now we're working through a use case in which National Public Radio would serve as the endorser of a Youth Radio issued badge. So that sounds a little bit complex, but the idea there is really that whoever the youth is interviewing with may not have heard of Youth Radio and their curriculum, but National Public Radio, which has greater international visibility, lends or vouches in some way, lends their reputation to Youth Radio, basically is able to say, we know the work that you do, we believe in the curriculum you are developing for students and in the content they're creating for us. We will go ahead and endorse these badges even though we don't actually know those individual earners or those individual students. So that's very much a work in progress, but something that we hope is forthcoming in regards to this open badges infrastructure. When we think about open badges, we also really consider ways that they are great for recognition of prior learning. So I know that this is something that for the educators in the room, and for any of us who have learned something in the past and want to bring that to bear in our current working lives, that actually distinguishes open badges, because it's not just a university degree or a piece of paper. It's something that actually remains valid and remains displayable on all the places that matter to you. So let's actually break this down and just talk a little bit more about what this looks like in the life of a learner. So go ahead and let's give her a name. Just shout out a name.
Susie.
Susie, all right. Susie is earning badges all over online and offline. These are places where she volunteers, formal classes that she's taking, let's say MOOCs, places where her peers have also recognized her for outstanding work. She's able to manage these badges in what we call a badges backpack. And that, if you go to backpack.openbadges.org, you can create your own backpack just using an email address. It's basically a single sign-on. And be able to determine where she would want to display these badges, be able to set the privacy settings for them. We know that the first badge a learner earns when they're 15 is potentially not what they want to share with a prospective employer when they're 22. And so that curation ability is completely in Susie's hands. From her backpack, she can use a WordPress display plugin and put those badges right on her blog. She can share them on Facebook and Twitter as status updates. And before anyone asks, because I know it's a question that comes up, we are in high-level conversations with LinkedIn about having your badges be displayable right on your profile page where they belong. And all of this is with the purpose of increased learning and professional opportunities, so that when Susie is meeting with a potential employer, when she comes back from summer vacation and is talking with her teacher about work that is of interest to her, they can really get into the nitty-gritty quickly. They can review her badges together, begin to suggest other relevant learning opportunities, and at a glance be able to see the evidence that went into the badges that she's earned. And it's worth sharing that the badges that Susie and hundreds of thousands of other learners around the world are earning can really be issued by anyone. So the issuer of a badge completely determines the criteria behind those badges. They determine the frequency with which badges are earned in their learning communities. And often they work with Mozilla and other issuers of open badges to just talk about promoted practices. This really is a nascent ecosystem. The standard itself is about 2 years old, and in that time, thousands of formal and informal educational organizations, multinational corporations, industry alliances, and nonprofits have all tied into this open infrastructure. And not to promote ourselves too much, but that really was without a dollar of marketing. And we think that that suggests that people really are interested in more richness and a more visual display than a transcript or a resume can provide. And one thing that really differentiates open badges from a resume is that they're actually vouched for. Whether that be something that the person sitting next to you right now issues to you for outstanding participation and attention during the session, or something that your PhD advisor actually grants you. We really think of this as disrupting top-down learning and in many ways encouraging all of us to become issuers of open badges, even for badges that we think we deserve to earn, and suggesting that someone else put their stamp of issuance on. Let me take a quick break. I know that I just ran through a lot of information, just to see if there's any questions.
Okay, I really love this concept. My one concern is, in the absence of a gatekeeper, how much value do the badges have?
Absolutely fantastic question and perfect timing. So Mozilla does not necessarily see ourselves as the arbiter of badge value. Of course, if you're an employer, you want to know, the frequency with which some of these badges have been issued. How rare are they? How hard were they to get? To really know how valuable that particular badge or that series of badges is. We imagine that in the next few years there will be third parties that in some ways serve as that, maybe less of a gatekeeper and more of an indicator of badges that would be of interest. One thing that we are talking about right now is a badge rank tool, almost like Google PageRank, that just would be able to simply from a quantitative perspective show you which badges have been most earned and most viewed. As the creators of the open standard, that value added role is something that we're eager to foster. We just don't know that that's a call that we should be making. Particularly as all of this content, we're by no means experts in everything that badges are being issued.
We have a presentation tomorrow afternoon that's also about the ecosystems that need to evolve in order for badges to have value. So Emily and I and Joey have, it's a breaking through session tomorrow afternoon.
Can you just say what time?
I think it's 3:25 or 3:45, something like that.
I'll tell you in 1 second. Any other questions?
I want to go back to the idea of endorsing.
Sure.
And do you see maybe potential there to address some of these questions? That, for example, we can have an institution, let's say a big university, with the idea of kind of endorse what we call official values, that are recognized almost like what the university value versus the ones that are basically just unification badges within a course that the instructor of the same institution may issue just in case to students. So do you see endorsing going that way, or it's only kind of endorsing between the two independent institutions?
Right, so this was a great question. It was, do you see the addition of the endorsement specification as helping with this question about perceived badge value? I hope so. I think you're absolutely right that when highly visible companies or universities lend their brand to these badges, it does create the potential for more eyeballs and potentially more interest around those badges. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Coming out of the second keynote that we just saw, I thought that was very front of mind for the work that we're doing. Truth be told, I think we don't know yet. The endorsement specification is something that gets me extremely excited because it is the opportunity to lend credibility where I think it's due. But we're not sure. Potentially excited. So I have just a few more slides and then we can open up for discussion. To date, the work that Mozilla has done has really focused on the earning issuing and display of badges. Looking forward, consumption and discoverability of badges is very, very front of mind. So in regards to discovery, one thing that I get excited about in working with earners of open badges is the question of how I might be able to look at work that people I admire have taken in their, let's say, their learning pathways or their own careers, and be able to learn from that. So in some ways, being able to glance at other learners' pathways in very visual, interactive ways with badges and also with other artifacts of learning, and really be able to have that inform my own learning and discovery. I think the consumption of badges is something that is absolutely thrilling. So we're working with organizations right now like Starbucks and Goodwill Industries, who are massive international employers, and thinking about ways that they can introduce badges into their employee training programs. So I think that there's a massive professional development piece here that is just really beginning to kick in. And so with companies like that, we always talk about, how is it that badges could enable a really rich dialogue between an employer and an employee about learning goals, about contribution to a team, etc. We've talked about this. And very often, employers are telling us that they can do keyword searches for things like hard skills. If they need an Ajax programmer, there's a pretty clear pathway now between GitHub, Stack Overflow, and other communities to find what they need. The things that are a little bit harder to identify are some of the things that we mentioned in regards to our learner, Susie. Things like the ability to lead a team, to ask great questions, to be passionate about the endeavors you pour yourself into. And so we think that there's a massive peer endorsement piece around that actually the people who know you best and who can write up the criteria that they think you've met becomes really exciting. Looking towards our current roadmap, this third piece, the alignment with pathways, is really where we're spending the bulk of our energy going into 2014. So if you're interested in issuing open badges, there are a number of open source tools. There are also paid and closed tools that you can use to issue badges. And I'm happy to provide that access to those. It's basically a community-created chart with different issuing platforms that you could walk through and sort of be able to determine, which of these issuing tools works best for your needs. I would be a fool to stand up here and say platform X is better than platform Y. It's completely determinant on the learning goals that you're really considering with regards to your badges. And of the many partners that we've worked with around the world, some of them are employers and they're interested in employment-related and professional development badges. Some are museums that are really focused on the learning experience that happens live. Some are organizations like Code School that already had badge systems in place. Those served as a form of currency among their community members, and they simply integrated our open badges infrastructure. That was a technical process that took their developers about a week, and it's really increased the ability for their badges to be seen beyond the Code School website. So those badges are now portable far beyond the codeschool.com/Emily Balgoski page, and actually I can now take those and share them on LinkedIn soon, Twitter, Facebook, on all of the places that are personally meaningful to me. I mentioned the work that we'll be doing around pathways looking into 2014. And just this week, we have announced a software stack that we'll be rolling out called Badge Kit. And this runs the gamut from tools to help building your badge system, developing that rigorous criteria, creating the visual design behind your badges, the ability to use assessment tools analysis tools, sharing and display, as we mentioned, and then this forthcoming endorsement piece. So we certainly have our work cut out for us in regards to this. If BadgeKit is something that's of interest to you, let's have a conversation this week, because we're very much shaping our thinking around this technical tool stack as we go. And the intention here is that all of these tools will be free and open source. We know that in some cases we might be building the best backpack for badge management there is out there. But in opening that up and in making all of the GitHub repositories, all of the code open source, people can actually take that code, fork it, and stand up their own instance of the backpack, which gets really exciting because it means that earners have more choice. They may end up finding that the Mozilla reference implementation of the backpack is fantastic for their needs, and that's where they want to manage all their badges. They might determine that Salt Lake City Community College's backpack is actually the best thing for them and choose to go with that. So the intention with this BadgeKit offering is that everything really be plug and play, so that maybe you use our assessment tool, maybe you use our backpack, and maybe you go elsewhere. I'm thrilled to say that thousands of contributors around the world contribute to Open Badges. I think that's an amazing part of the Mozilla legacy of being a nonprofit contributor-based project, is that we are not building all of this in a silo. We are doing lots and lots of research to understand what is needed and to really address the question of how we can meet educators and issuers of all stripes where they're at. And with that, a project that I'm taking on as our researcher is right now to identify the different roles that our various community members around the world play. And so we basically wanted to map out the different ways that people are interacting at this minute as we prepare to develop BadgeKit tools for users like them. And this is a little bit small. You realize this in an iteration of a presentation. But things like Badges Beginner. And that was part of the reason that I just wanted to get a sense at the beginning of who's in the room. To just understand where you're at as far as your Open Badges knowledge. Many members of our community, as I mentioned, are what we call wizards. They're actually developing additions to and widgets for community members. And so if this project is something that seems like it could be relevant to your work, please let me know. We also have on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, weekly research and badge system design calls. And that's an hour-long conversation where we have a presenter come on for 40 minutes and talk about their related work. And then for 20 minutes, we have community members ask questions and give updates. And I really just cannot say enough about the fantastic sense of community that has developed from those conversations. So I'll provide more info about that, but do join us on Wednesday mornings as your schedules allow. OpenBadges.org is the place to get started. Community.openbadges.org is also a place to start tuning into our learning and development forums. And of course, at openbadges.org. I will be around the rest of this week. I just got my 1 minute, but I do want to quickly see any last questions.
So given that you do have the repository where theoretically all badges that are issued can live, and the ability to metadata tag what badges mean, are you providing a way for employers to search that repository to identify the individuals who have the skills that they're looking for?
Absolutely. So the discovery piece of this tool stack is all about creating learner and employer dashboards, so that the thing in talking to recruiters that we hear so often is, listen, I basically have 6 seconds to look at a resume, and then I need to go on to the next one. And so how can you actually make my job easier with badges? And that, exactly what you mentioned, is something that is very front of mind.
We gotta stop. Sorry.
I can ask.